Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all.
Yeah, you know I'm shooting straight from the hip.
This is Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know I'm shooting straight from the hip. Love, peace, and hair grease. Yeah, you know I'm shooting straight from the hip.
Let's take a trip around the curve.
Hampton, but we the real HU, girl. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic in the house. Let me fix it. I always got issues with lighting when I come up in this piece. But anyway, let me take my glasses off so I can actually see y'all. Hi, happy Monday to you, baby. It is hotter than a witch's tit here in LA. I am schwitzing like you would not believe. I got the fan going on, so if you hear some miscellaneous sound in the background, that is what it is. So if this is your first time, and look, hair just blowing in the wind. If this is your first time joining me, I am Carla Renata, the Curvy Film Critic. And what I do here is I do reviews of films, and I talk to people above and below the line in the film industry. Last week, I had the whole freaking cast of Elvis, including Tom Hanks, Austin Butler, Olivia DeJonge, Yola, Alton Mason, and the director, Baz Luhrmann. Did I say Tom Hanks? Yeah, I had Tom Hanks too. So anyway, this week, I usually start out telling you what I did last week, and then I get right into it. I have an interview with the filmmaker of Beba, which is a film festival darling. I have some interviews with two of the cast members from Flowers in the Attic and the writer of Flowers in the Attic. Excuse me. Something got caught in my throat. And then I have some reviews of a couple of films that I'll go through along the way. So let me get into what I did last week. So last week I went to, let me tell you this first. So I talked about this last week. Chaz Ebert graciously invited me to be one of the writers that participated in her Black Writers Week of 2022. You can find that article, which is talking about microaggressions against freelance journalists of color and why that has not really ceased to exist. So you can go there and read that and see what I have to say about that, in addition to the review that I wrote for them for Marcel, the show with the shoes on, which is hella cute. It's so, so cute. And like I said, I have the cast of Flowers in the Attic today. I have the filmmaker from Beba. I have these two young ladies, the one, the chocolatey brown one, and the one up in the upper right-hand corner if you're facing your screen, and the writer, Paul Chiarata. And we're going to talk about all things Flowers in the Attic. So last week, I attended the Thor premiere, the Thor world premiere. It was in LA, and they held it in two different theaters, at the El Capitan and the Dolby, simultaneously, because it was a large movie and it was a large amount of people that attended. I had so much fun. The movie is hella funny. I will tell you more about it next week because I am under embargo. And since my show hits before the film releases, I cannot give too many details about it. But I will tell you, it's probably the funniest Thor I've ever seen. And Natalie Portman is Thor. That is not a spoiler alert because there's been numerous press releases to that effect already. And then I ran into this lovely woman, the messy auntie from Miss Marvel. I kind of love her. Angel, what's up, baby? Thank you for snapping that shot with me. And then I ran into these lovely peeps of mine, Mr. Scott Evans and Miss Fran from E! And respectively Access Hollywood. Love them. And they joined me. And then I hopped on over to the Black Phone premiere that was on, it was almost a week ago. Black Phone stars Ethan Hawke, and you can see the review for that film on my site, thecurvyfilmcritic.com. You can always see the written versions of all of these films that I talk about at thecurvyfilmcritic.com and on Rotten Tomatoes, as I am a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic. Now, this week and last week, we've been dealing with the I lost it. There it is. The Bentonville Film Festival. It started on June 22nd and it will go through July 3rd. And I have a couple of films that I saw in conjunction with that, but I'll talk about that a little later on. Right now, I want to talk a little bit about Beba and what that film is about before I play this interview for you with the director, Rebecca Huntt. Beba is a film festival darling, like I said, and it is centered around, it's kind of like a self-docu drama kind of thing. And it centers around this young Afro-Latina, New York born bred woman who is looking down through her history and the generational trauma and the societal trauma that she has been dealing with unapologetically. And she's taking us on this cinematic journey through her life with no filter. And I mean, absolutely none. She talks about experiencing racist behavior as an Afro-Latina where kids laughed at her and told her that her hair looked like Frederick Douglass, which is super, super mean. There's a scene that resonated with me that we talk about in the interview that she has with her mother, where she told her mother that she was not having the microaggressions from her mother in that moment, and how she let that camera roll and sat in the uncomfortability of that with her mom and her feeling some kind of way. And the whole film is shot in 16 millimeters. So without further, and you will be able to see this film. It's in theaters right now. So you'll be able to see it in limited theaters across country. But without further ado, take a look and a listen to this interview with my girl, Rebecca Huntt from Beba. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, sis. How you doing today?
Great. I'm great.
Good. Girl, this film messed me up. It messed me up in the best way possible.
Oh, okay. I was like,
she was like, no. Because in order for this film to work, you can't hide your flaws, right? And you literally just like strip yourself naked to tell this story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Why did you decide to do that?
because I wanted to connect with people. In order for it to feel like I could connect, it had to be intimate and honest. And with 16 millimeter specifically, it is a very limited and pulsating composition, like the way that like what is filmed comes out. And it's, you know, when I think about intimacy, it's like if I'm looking at my leg or if I'm looking at a body part of my partner's on, you know, on a bed, or if I'm, you know, looking at my, you know, myself in the mirror, just like what intimacy looks like is actually limited and pulsating. Mm-hmm. So 16 millimeter to me in my brain embodies intimacy in a visual sense.
It feels very hauntingly poetic, yet raw at the same time. But the way that you shot it with the 16 millimeter is absolutely beautiful, especially the shots of like the waterfall. And is that you in the water where you're surrounded by the green, like the algae and the leaves and all of that, with you face down in the water, just floating, and all that greenness that's representing the earth and all its beauty? Girl, that was really beautiful to watch. I love that. But what was a little uncomfortable, only because it resonated with me a little bit, was that moment you had with your mother where you were trying to interview your mama and she was being special that particular day. And you were like, stop with the microaggressions. And she, like, at first she was like, it was so funny because at first she was like, whatever. And then she thought about what you had just said to her and got in her feelings a little bit. And then a little later on, you got in your feelings a little bit. How uncomfortable was that for you? And what was the decision to keep it in there? Because as you said, you wanted to connect with people, and that was about as raw as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that, yeah. It was just because it was just what our relationship was during that time. Mm-hmm. Like my mother and I were not communicating well in that phase in my life. Mm-hmm. Right? So mm-hmm. It was like, and that phase in her life as well. So it was just, you know, I tried to interview my mom. It happened to be at this time in my life, which is when this film is occurring. So this is what there is to show. That I tried to interview my mom, and this is what happened.
Wow. I resonated with that because I've had some conversations like that with my mother. And my mother and I are like this. But there's every once in a while we'll have a conversation where it ends just like that. And your mother looks a lot similar to my mom. So I was like, oh, like, okay, Claudette is being called out in somebody else's film and she don't even know it. But it made me okay, it made me laugh, but it made me look at myself the next time I go to communicate with her and we have those moments. So I say all of that to say that you wanted to connect with people with Beba, and you connected wholeheartedly with me. And I wanted to make sure that I communicated that to you, because that more than anything else in that entire film, that's the moment I remember vividly, because it connected with me that strongly. So I wanted to let you know that. I also read that your editor, Isabel, said that Beba felt like going on a potent first date.
That's something you would say, yeah, totally.
Do you agree?
Obviously, like, I'm Beba, you know, or Beba, but I would say,
forgive me for pronouncing it Beba. Okay.
No, it's okay. So it's just funny because I would not, like, I think it is like a very potent first date, for sure. Like, if you overshare. You know?
And scene. I also want to talk about you make some revelations in this film. You address the mental illness on your mother's side of the family. You address being Afro-Latina and how painful that could be for you sometimes, particularly the way the kids would talk about your hair, calling you Frederick Douglass and stuff like that. How difficult was it for you to revisit those moments? Because again, those are very personal moments and moments that you don't want to sit in every second of the day. And yet you made the bold choice to include this so that it can resonate with others.
I think that I would have had this level of self-acceptance later on in my life, like in my 50s or 60s. But this just like helped me. Making this film, I was sort of forced, there was a forced level of acceptance because the mission was so much bigger than me and so much bigger than my feelings. You know? So sharing certain things, like there's things that I didn't share that I'm going to keep close because they're mine. But for the most part, like what I did choose to share, I just, you know, even if it's cringe, it's like, it's so small for me to like be like, oh, that's so cringe. I don't know. There's just like a level of self-acceptance that needed to happen, and it did. And it's really cool.
How did you get that nickname?
Beba?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom, it's in the film, but my mom...
I know it's in the film. I saw the film, but people that haven't seen the film don't know Beba.
My mom, well, I'm the baby of the family, and my name is Rebecca. So Beba is like kind of in between, like bebe. In Spanish is baby. So it's in between bebe and Rebecca. It's Beba.
You better roll them R's. You were like, listen, it's in the film. I'm like, Miss Thing, I saw the film. You are hilarious.
You know what I'm doing? I know, I like forget because in my mind I'm like, oh my god, we're having such a great conversation. Like there's like a larger purpose, you know?
It's all good. It's all good. What's the in closing it out, what is the one thing that you want people to take away? Because this is a very beautifully intense video diary, so to speak. But other than that, what do you want people to take away from it when they see it?
That they're not alone, and that there's no shame in being who you are, and there's no shame in fighting your demons, because we're all fighting our demons.
Thanks, Rebecca, for taking some time for me today. I appreciate you.
Carla, it was such a pleasure to chat with you. I loved being on The Curvy Critic. Thank you so much for having me. And I love the Malcolm X poster and the Nia Long. What is that? What is she?
That's Sanaa Lathan.
Oh, it's Sanaa Lathan. Okay. Maybe my screen's blurry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Look, I was like, Nia Long got a haircut? And then it's like, no, it's
that's Sanaa Lathan.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day now.
I apologize for like the sound going in and out, but you know, a sister be messing with the sound. She be trying to get it together and all that. Let me just say before I get to my boy Brandon's comments, who's always here, ride or die. Mwah, mwah. Love you, Brandon. Let me just say that at the BET Awards last night, HU was represented. HU, you know. Woo, woo, woo. Howard University was represented. It was hosted by Taraji P. Henson. Debbie Allen jumped up on stage with Sean P. Diddy Combs, who also went to Howard. There was a bunch of Howard people in the audience. I was at home watching it, you know, with my best life. So I just got to give a shout out to Taraji P. Henson for shouting out the on and only HU, Howard University. Okay. Now that I've said that, let me get to Brandon's comments because I'm doing way too much in this moment. Brandon says that he cannot wait to see Minions: The Rise of the Gru this Friday, then Paws of Fury on the 15th, and Super Pets on the 29th. I got you on all of those. I don't have Minions because I kind of missed the screening for that. So they're arranging something for me to see it tomorrow. So I will have a review up for it by the time it opens. I'm just not going to talk about it here this week. And Brandon also says that he's working on a pitch Bible for a cartoon book called The Buntastic Family, about a bunny family with superpowers. I wish you nothing but the best on that, Brandon. I know how much you love to draw. You send me your drawings all the time, and I love them. They're so, so very good. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you on that one, all right? All right, so I said what I had to say about HU. I said what I had to say about Brandon. Now let's get into a little Rise. Rise is streaming on Disney Plus right now. It's directed by Aiken. I know I wrote his name down wrong, so I don't want to say his last name, but it's directed by Aiken. I think it's Omatoso is what his last name is. But, you know, sometimes that autocorrect be messing with me. But it deals with this family, the Atutukumbo family from Nigeria, who went from Nigeria to Greece, and their struggle to care for their 5 children. These brothers play basketball at a local team, and they discover their great abilities on court. This is a true story. This dude is literally like the Hulk of basketball. And he's everything. His family and the actors that play him and his family are absolutely fantastic. And the biggest takeaway that you're going to get from this is that they had to run away to freedom. And there's a difference between being an illegal immigrant and being a refugee. That's one of the big takeaways. Another one of the big takeaways is that Black children are devoted to helping their parents who raised them no matter what. And when it is your time, baby, it is your time, and nobody can take that from you. A really dear friend said that to me once, and it only takes one person to believe in you. Don't matter if there's 5,000 that don't believe in you. It only takes one. Rise made my heart sing. It made my spirit swell, and it is streaming on Disney Plus right now. There is a film coming out that is directed by Emma Holly Jones and distributed by Bleecker Street and produced by Universal Pictures. It's called Mr. Malcolm's List, and it is going to drop on July 1st. Y'all, this, you know how I feel about my period pieces. I love my period pieces, love them, love them, love them. And this one is no different. This deals with a young woman who courts a mysterious wealthy suitor in 19th century England. The suitor would be the brother in the background, and the young woman would be Miss Frida Pinto. I was there for all of the chocolaticity in the period piece. Period piece, chocolate people. That's all I have to say. It's very Bridgerton-ish and with caramel folks sprinkled here, there, and about. And his list of requirements is something that we could use today. It's based on a book. And let me see, what else do I want to tell you about this? Oh, it's written by Susanna Lane, who wrote the book by the same name. And it stars Frida Pinto, Sope Dursu, Oliver Jackson Cohen, Ashley Park, Zawe Ashton, and Theo James. Baby, this cast is fire. It's everything. It's not getting a lot of play going into the release. I'm not quite sure why, but y'all don't want to miss Mr. Malcolm's List. I was there for all of it. This was a really, really great film. I enjoyed it with all of my life. And this sister that's to your right as you're watching the screen, she was messy in the best way possible. I give her numerous snaps and claps. Again, Mr. Malcolm's List dropping on July 1st, distributed by Bleecker Street and produced by Universal Pictures. Now, there's another film that I saw called The Princess. This film is distributed by produced by 20th Century Fox and distributed by Hulu. And it's directed by Lee Van Keet. And it's starring Joey King, that you see in that picture there, with Dominic Cooper, Nao Tanban, and Olga Kurylenko. Baby, listen, if there are some chocolate people in a movie, if there are women being badass and kicking butt all over the screen, I'm there for all of it. And Joey King is no slouch. She plays a strong-willed princess that refuses to wed a cruel sociopath and is kidnapped and locked in a remote tower with her scorned, vindictive suitor intent on taking her father's throne. This princess must protect her family and save her kingdom. And that is exactly what she does alongside this doll right here. The action scenes in this are bananas. They are crazy, but they are so well worth the watch. It runs a little long, people. It does run a little long, but you will have a great time, I promise you. Again, it is called The Princess. It will be on Hulu beginning July 1st is what I said. All right, so let me talk a little bit about this BFF Film Festival, and then I'll get into these interviews with Flowers in the Attic. Ugh. What is wrong with me? So I said the BFF Festival started on the 22nd. It's going to run through July 3rd. And somebody that I really, really love, when I first started my journey as a film critic, I met F.E.T. Brown at the LA Film Festival, which is no longer existing. But she's the producer of Dear White People, the film. And it was playing there. And it was a hard ticket to get at that festival, and she got me a ticket and got me a really good seat. I'll never forget that she did that. I'll never forget that whenever I requested to interview her along the way, she never, ever, ever said no. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that the Bentonville Film Festival honored her along with actor Finn Agurs at the 2022 Bentonville Film Festival. Now, I've seen a plethora of their films. I moderate a lot of stuff for them. But two films that I really want to talk about is this one film called The Seven Faces of Jane with Gillian Jacobs. It's a feature. It's like an American anthology. It originates from Gillian, Ken Jeong, Gia Coppola, and Ryan Heffington, and it includes 8 short films. It premiered at the festival on June 22nd. This film, the 8 films together, are a compilation of all of the things that Jane goes through in the course of a day or in the course of a week. I'm not really sure of the time frame. She drops her kid off at summer camp and what happens between the time she drops her kid off and the time she comes back. It is a roller coaster ride, but it is an excellent tour de force acting showcase for Gillian Jacobs. I also wanted to talk about a couple of other films that I saw. These are not them. These are some of the films that won awards over the weekend that were at the Bentonville Film Festival. But I want to talk about this film called The Thief Collector. So let me just put myself back on camera so you can hear me talk about this one, honey, or see me talk about this one, because this one was a trip. So The Thief Collector is this film. It's a feature film about this theft that happened in 1985 of a de Kooning famous painting called Women Okra, and it's directed by Alison Otto. There's this middle-class Jewish couple that decided they were going to walk into the University of Arizona Museum of Art and cut this particular painting off of its frame, roll it up, and walk out. They literally walked out with it, didn't get caught, and hung it on the back door of their bedroom. And it was only after they passed away 32 years later did their family members discover that this indeed was a really famous painting worth oodles and oodles of money. And Jerry, who was the man in the scenario, he wrote and published numerous books on the subject and still didn't get caught. It cracks me up that he did that. But I just want to say that that picture that I showed before, they gave out all of the awards. They gave out the Narrative Film Award to Every Day in Kamuki. They gave the Documentary Film Award to Shouting Down Midnight. They gave the Short Film Narrative Award to director George. Why did I say George? The Short Narrative Film Award to Georgia, directed by J.L. Pack. And the Episodic Award went to Chiqui, directed by Carlos Cardona. You can see the rest of the film's winners and awards that went down over the weekend if you go to the Bentonville Film Festival site, and you can still watch films because it is still going on through July 3rd. Now let's talk a little bit about some of this Flowers in the Attic, honey. Now Flowers in the Attic is a V.C. Andrews film, and it is written by Paul Chiarota, who I have an interview with here for y'all today. Flowers in the Attic is one of my favorite book series. It's written, like I said, by V.C. Andrews, and it is a series of 14 books, and I've probably read, I think, 11 out of the 14. When I was on the road, I used to read. They were always available in the bookshops in the airport, and I would always read them because they were intriguing and they were crazy. They're dealing with, crazy romances that don't happen in real life. There's incest, there's mommy and daddy issues, there's a diversified LGBTQ storyline happening, which never happened in the books, let me tell you, that I read. I never saw anything about Black people or LGBTQ in the books. So this is, something that they have moved forward with the film. And it's just, the film is just crazy. It's crazy. And what happens is this uncle and his niece end up having sex, and they end up with 4 children. And the grandmother and the mother are having none of it. And then what starts out as a fairy tale turns into a big old nightmare soon after. But I will let the stars of the film and the director tell you more about it. I'll give you this one first with Miss Tashawn and Alana Bolden from Flowers in the Attic, The Origins, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it when I come back. As actors, yes, we're often looked at as not having a profession that is what people would consider a normal way or a viable means of making a living, right? Yeah. So Alicia is in a very precarious situation where she's kind of married into money. And so I was wondering, in preparation for your character as Alicia, were you able to bring that sensibility of that prejudice toward actors to bringing Alicia to life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Mm. I think definitely when I read the scripts and I got to know Alicia, I think one of the things I wanted to make sure was kind of understood that she really, I believe she really does love her husband. I think there is true love there. And I think that she's quite maybe slightly naive, and I don't think she's necessarily aware of maybe how people are viewing her. So I never really thought about it in that way, but that's so true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very cerebral. I think about crazy stuff all the time. How familiar were y'all with the V.C. Andrews series of books before you started this project? Were you a fan? Had you never heard of her? And then once you started to, dig into it a little bit, were you like, oh no, she got a lot going on. There's a lot of darkness, there's lust, there's deceit, there's a lot. She's got a lot going on. Go ahead, Tashawn.
I tell you what, I hadn't heard of her books. I had heard of people online before saying things like, oh, that's a bit Flowers in the Attic. But it went over my head and I didn't know what that meant. You know, when you see a meme and you don't know what it means. And then when I got the audition and I started reading the scripts and stuff, and then I realized, oh my goodness, okay, this is the thing. It's like an inside joke type thing as well. So I completely understood after I became part of the process. But my mum knew all of the books because she read them growing up, so she knew all about them. She could tell me actually a lot of things about it as well, and when I got the part. So yeah, it was completely new to me.
So me and your mom would get along great.
Yes, you would.
How about you, Alana?
You know, I think the same thing. My mum had read the books. I'd heard of it, but I hadn't read them myself. But yeah, you know, once the script came through and I sort of told my mum, she was so excited. She was like, oh my goodness, yes. I
bet she was. I'm excited for you. And last but not least, I want to talk to both of you ladies about working with Jemima, because Jemima is a beast. And she had to bring a different sensibility of that beastness in working with both of you. With Nella, that fine line of trying to be a friend, but not really. And she does the same thing to Alicia a little bit. And I was wondering if you ladies wouldn't mind speaking to that as we close things out. I'll let Alana go first, speaking about Olivia and Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Jemima is incredible. And I think what was so interesting about the Alicia and Olivia dynamic was, I guess, how close it could have been, how close in moments they were, and how quickly it all kind of fell apart. And I think both Olivia and Alicia are trying to look at the bigger picture, but I think, you know, ultimately that's what kind of tears them apart and turns them against each other, because they have very different ideas. And I guess maybe Alicia's just got maybe a slightly different outlook on life.
Yes, she does. And Tashan, as Olivia and Nella go through this really, it's a complicated relationship that they have. But at some point, Nella's like, you know what? It eventually comes down to, and it's undercover, but it eventually comes down to the race. Mm-hmm. It really does. And I just want you to speak to that for a second, if you might.
It's very, very painful and hurtful for Nella, because she almost tries to look out for her when she first arrives, and but always trying to remember that she works there and they have this boss employee dynamic thing going on, and then there's also the race thing going on that's very prevalent at the time. And I think Jemima does it so well, and I think that's why it made it easy for me as well to tap into and be as truthful to Nella as well, because a lot of Nella is Olivia and their relationship and how that blossoms and then doesn't. And I just think she does it so well of making you feel like she's letting you in and then reminding you, I'm your boss, and putting you back down to your place and like putting you back down a few pegs. And I think Nella found that really, really tough. And I think, those moments that you talked about where there were moments where she was just like, okay, but they were from those constant reminders that, oh, we're not actually friends. And I going back to what you were saying, your question, I think Jemima just did that so well and did it with ease, and it helped me in my process because she did that so well.
Well, you two ladies really did your thing in Flowers in the Attic. I can't wait for people to see it. I can't wait for people to see your performances. And I know you got a lot going on down there in Texas. And I thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time for me today to talk to you about it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's lovely
so
to meet you.
Yeah.
It's great to meet y'all too. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye. Bye.
So let me just clarify. When I talked to them, let me sit back. I'm all up on the camera. When I talked to them about being in Texas, these interviews took place during the ATX Film Festival. which happened a few weeks ago. And that festival deals strictly with television content. So without further ado, let me get on back down here, and I'm going to let you talk to. I'm going to let you listen to the writer of Flowers in the Attic, The Origin, Mr. Paul Shirota.
Listen, when I saw that this was on the ATX schedule, I got so excited. I'm like, oh Lord, please let me talk to somebody from that project, because I love that project. I love how there's like this lust and incest and secrets and lies and deceit and jealousy and darkness. It's just all encompassing. And just when you think VC's gonna, bring it back down and it's gonna be normal, she blows it all apart again. And I'm just like, I can't.
Have you read Garden of Shadows?
Have I read Garden of Shadows?
I didn't know if that was one of the 9 you read, or I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
I read them all. I was like, and when I found out that, I remember at some point I didn't see them in the bookstore anymore. So then I had to actively go out and so sad. I had to actively go out and find them. It was pitiful. It was really pitiful. Fear is like pain. If you endure it long enough, you become numb to it. What are your thoughts about that particular quote? Because there's like, Olivia is just popping off these quotes every 2 seconds, and they're like so yummy and delicious. And there's so many things that you can put on them. And I just wanted to get your thoughts about that one.
Well, that one just comes from the heart. Maybe that's a dark place, but it's something that like I relate to. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think what VC Andrews did so well, and I think why like that kind of language fits in her world is, she understood that families are supposed to be where you go to be loved and supported. And unfortunately, that is not the case for many people. And I think she just took that to an extreme and really blew it up in her world. And I think that is sort of the way in for people, even though in the VC world it is very larger than life. We all, know what that's like on some level.
Yeah, we totally do. And this was another thing that they said when they looked at, I forget what character said it. There was one character that looked at Olivia and said that she had a sour face and a dead womb. I'm like, oh,
yeah, that was Malcolm.
That's cold.
I know. It was. But I was trying so hard to go there, and my big fear was, how do you cast Malcolm and make him be able to deliver those lines and still in moments find empathy for this man. And then Max came along, and I couldn't have been happier. He's perfect, and he did a really, really great job. And he also did a really great job, he's such a kind, gentle soul that I think he put everyone at ease on set.
Listen, I was just about to ask you to wind it down about the casting, because the casting, especially the casting of Alicia and Corinne, those two characters, when I watch them on screen, their energy and the way that they're navigating on screen is very believable that they could be mother and daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if that was because of the acting choices that these two young ladies did that made it look like that. Like, did they watch each other, or was it in the casting of the roles that made that happen?
Oh, all credit to them, to the actresses. I think they sorted that out between themselves. And I was just talking with them last night, but I think part of what helped all that, we shot this in Bucharest. We started a little over a year ago, so everyone was still, when we got there, the city was in lockdown. There were curfews at 5 o'clock. Everyone was pretty much stuck in the hotel. So we were all new to the city, and I think the cast really spent a lot of time together because there was no one else to spend time with. So they got to know each other in a way that I think is pretty unique for a show like this. So I'm sure part of those similarities came from their bonding in real life.
Cool. So for those who are not familiar with VC Andrews, that don't know anything about Flowers in the Attic, what do you want to tell people about why they should watch this particular limited series?
I think this particular limited series is, there's nothing like it on TV right now. Oftentimes in TV, we see these, family dramas, but most of the time they're picking up they're continuous, right? And so you're leaving off one episode and you're coming back in the next moment. what we're doing is looking at a family over the course of 35 years. So we have decades to go through. We're doing it all in 8 hours. So we really can jump ahead to those big moments that really, really change things and turn them on their head. And just, I think in tone, the tone that I really tried hard to establish is Southern Gothic horror family drama. And I don't think there's much like that out there. And I hope people watch it for that and enjoy all of it, because it gets dark. There's moments of fun and a lot of heart, surprisingly.
Okay, I lied. I do have one other question that came to me.
Yes, anything.
Okay. So one other question is, normally when I've seen other movies in the Flowers in the Attic arena, I haven't seen people of color in them. And I love that Nella is in this franchise. And I love that the way that Nella is being portrayed isn't one note. Like, Tashawn brings so much depth and breadth to Nella that it makes you care about her. Mm-hmm. Just as you care about Olivia, just as you care about Malcolm and Christopher and Kathy and all these other characters. She makes you care about them. Why did you decide to put some folks up in there? Because I loved that.
I mean, before I get to the scene in the second movie where she's on the bed with Alicia and she's telling her story, and I just stayed on her for the whole thing. We didn't cut away because Tashawn's face just said it all, and I love that scene so much. Anyway, but to answer your question, yeah, I feel like V.C. Andrews never hesitated to confront issues of the time, but in these books there wasn't anything about race or sexuality.
No.
And so both my producing partners in Los Angeles, my wonderful executives over at A&E and Lifetime, they were all very open to just opening the world and seeing what that might look like. And what it might look like was pretty scary in the Jim Crow South. That's our time period. And the other thing that I think the character of Nella did really well is, the story itself is so claustrophobic. We're in the house for the entire 8 hours, except for the very opening, before we get to the house. And we're thinking, like, how do I open this world but still keep it in the house? And then we're like, okay, we can start with like this family who lives in the carriage house, who's there for all of it, but who also can respond to the madness of what's happening in Foxworth Hall the way we as viewers might, with horror and shock. And you'll notice that, like, we go to Nella and her family quite often for those reactions that I want the audience to be having. Like, this is completely insane. This should not be happening. How can this be happening?
I caught that, especially when we're dealing with Henry. I caught how you used Henry and the affair, so to speak, to
Harry and Joel. Yes,
Joel, to create that vantage point or that eye link of what the audience may think about everything that's going on.
Yeah, that I was trying to. And also, like, we got to do an interracial period gay love story on TV. That's pretty cool. I was super excited about it. And Luke and Jordan did a brilliant job. They brought so much passion and realism and heart to those roles. I can't thank them enough.
It was very delicate and it was very sweet, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the entire series. I'm so excited for people to see it. Yes, Paul, I'm telling you, Flowers in the Attic is my jam. It is. I loved it. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about it, because, I couldn't wait to talk to you.
Oh my God, you made my day. Thank you.
And thanks for following me on the IG.
Oh yeah, you got it. Still talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
I kind of love providing those moments where we're not, talking about the projects, where you can see, the people that I'm talking to just being real and see the stuff that happens before we roll the interviews or after we finish, because I think it makes it a little more realistic and a lot more fun to watch. So I want to thank Paul Shirata, Tashawn, Alana Bolden, Alana, and Rebecca Huntt from Beba for giving me time to talk to them this week. Again, you guys, don't forget to watch Beba, which is in theaters right now. The Bentonville Film Festival is online. You can go to the Bentonville Film Festival, I think it's .org or .com, or just type in Bentonville Film Festival, Bentonville Film Festival. It's running through July 3rd, and you can watch it virtually, so you can catch some things yourself. Flowers in the Attic is going to drop on Lifetime in tandem with A&E, so you can watch it on A&E and or Lifetime beginning June 29th. There's 5 episodes of that. Rise is streaming on Disney Plus right now. Mr. Malcolm's List is going to hit theaters on July 1st, courtesy of Bleecker Street and Universal Pictures. And The Princess is going to hit Hulu on July 1st. Now, next week, I'm debating whether or not I'm going to stream on Monday. I may stream on Sunday just because Monday is July 4th and I want to get my barbecue on too. So I may do that. If indeed I do that, I'll be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. I'll be talking about Minions, The Rise of the Gru, and I'll have interviews from Mr. Malcolm's List. The week after that, I'll have Don't Make Me Go. I'll have a review from that and interviews with the cast of that film, including Mia Isaac and John Cho. Y'all, that one, oh, I can't wait to talk to y'all about that one. Zombies 3 is hitting Disney again, and I'll be talking to some of the cast members from that. And I'm also going to be reviewing Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. That's happening the week of July 11th. And then, of course, the week of July 18th, bringing us toward the end of the month of July, Nope, Paws of Fury, and Where the Crawdads Sing. And who knows who's going to stop by the Curvy Critic. I'm going to try to bring y'all some people live every once in a while, too, just so we can mix it up a little bit. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Thank you, Brandon. Love you. You're always here. Give me a big thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications if you are on the YouTube. If you are on any of the other channels that are streaming like right now, like on LinkedIn, Facebook Live, and on the Twitter, please do yourselves and hop on over to YouTube and give me a little, likey, subscribe to the channel. Follow me at thecurvyfilmcritic.com. Subscribe to that channel too, where you can see the written version of my reviews there. And you can also see written versions of my reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Try to stay cool. I'm doing my best. I'm up in here melting, honey. But thank you so very much. And until the next time I see you, keep safe, wash them hands, and love, peace, and hair grease, baby. Until the next time I see you, which may be either July 3rd or July 4th. We'll see. Deuces.